sarin gas, submachine guns, torture, rape, murder, and a political turmoil marked the streets of Chile and the halls of Colonial Dignidad. Chaos was surrounding and enveloping everything that Chile had ever known. Tanks and guns were the new currency. And belief? Well, that was just something that kept the people hanging on. Which kind of Chilean are you? The communist one? Or the right one? The answer was life or death.
I didn't see you there.
Something big is going on here.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot.
Paranormal, UFOs, true crime, and more.
We won't just be spouting articles.
I was researching for your entertainment.
The beginning of a new world.
The best guac you'll ever fucking eat.
True story.
It's basically like one day you walk outside and you see that the ants are playing with matches.
This is the Black Cat Report.
See you on the other side.
Welcome to the Black Cat Report and big episode 80.
Yeah.
I am Joey, your host for today, and with me is the Aristotle-like, aromatic, appendices reading, Gil.
Hello, everybody.
Before we get into our episode, we want to give Gil another chance to introduce the podcast. He is starting with a few other people. So, take it away again, Gil, and this time don't disappoint Damien and Kristen.
I won't fuck it up this week. I was excited. I stutter through and I mess shit up when I'm excited. Y'all know that by now. We are launching a new podcast. Going to be focused on the high strangeness, focused on the paranormal. Now, the podcast is called Beer, Booze, and Boogeymen.
Got it.
And it's going to have...
Nailed it.
Now, it's also going to have Kristen from the Paranorm Girl podcast and Damien from RKB Paranormal / Life Beyond 6 Feet. We're going to get together, drink, chat, and most importantly, we're going to open up the lines to let folks like you call in and chat with us. We want to hear from you because, like I said last week, and like I'll keep saying, we really want to focus on building community coming into 2024, and this is our move for it.
Great job. I don't think they can be mad at you this week. So, also want to make clear, BCR, Black Cat Report, is still going to continue.
100%. One last announcement. We only have a handful of Squonk stickers left. We really want to give them out. Like I said last week, we really want to start off the new year giving out gifts to folks by celebrating all the folks that have been there for us, shared our stuff, listened to us. If you're hearing this right now, you qualify. So how do you get a sticker? And very detailed, very nice, very thought out letter from both Joey and I. All you got to do is in the top of the episode description. There's going to be a link. It says Squonk Stickers. Click that, fill out the form, we'll get your address, and Joey and I will take the time to write you a letter to wish you a new year, because every time you listen to our episode, every time you like our social media post, put us in your story, whatever it happens to be, you're voting towards Joey and I going full-time with BCR, which is a dream that we share, and it means the absolute world to us. Like, that is it. It might seem really silly because it's social media, but like,
that matters.
Goddamn,
it
dude,
matters. Every
every time we see it, we get so fucking stoked. We share it with each other. We chit chat about it. We're like, oh my God, did you see so-and-so did this? I'm like, I don't even know them. Do you know them? I don't even know them. Like, we get so excited about it. It really means the world to us. And we want to start off the new year by giving appreciation. So we only got a handful left. We can only afford so many stamps on a budget of 0 advertising.
It's 0 right now. Yes, we're almost good to get back into advertising. So we're working through that. So
we're getting there. We're talking. We're talking to some cool folks.
Well, today we are going to reinsert ourselves back into Colonial Dignidad, Paul Schaeffer's Christian cult. Well, we left off last week with Paul Schaeffer effectively cutting down on any fun at Colonial Dignidad. The dances stopped, all because of a young girl and boy dancing together. The women were separated from the men, and the women toiled long and hard in the fields, being whipped and effectively tortured. The young boys were, like we talked about, were being raped and abused. And the dreams of a community where all could live in peace were effectively destroyed. Paul Schaeffer had made a few friends in the business and political side of Chile and was effectively above the law. We are in the years of the Cold War, and the Berlin Wall is up, and nobody wants to stay in East Germany. Well, I want to start this out by quoting one of the colonists and high-up people in the cult. They went in on an interview. So a few questions that the interviewer asked this lady. She said, "Are you Nazis?" And the colonists replied, "Nazis, ay, ay, ay. How can we be Nazis? Imagine some of us were persecuted by the Nazis." The interviewer, obviously stumped, asked, "Well, then are you communists?" "Communists? That's crazy. Most colonists are refugees from East Germany, from East Prussia." And then, so, obviously the interviewer is like, "Then what do you do? How do you find what you do?" The lady colonist replied, "Helping others makes you happy. We chose the motto for our works. Helping makes you happy." And I wanted to define that at the beginning because, we kind of get lost in some of the stuff that happened in this, but a lot of the people in this are trying to help. And a lot of the victims in this felt like they were helping. And I think that's something to always remember, even to the people that were brainwashed in this, which is what I kind of, you're watching it, you get real emotional watching this stuff. And, the people higher up in it are doing really bad things. And in my view, there's one major bad person in this, and that's Paul Schaeffer. The other people are just getting brainwashed and put through this. They are part victim. Some of them are also victim and oppressor in this, which is a very interesting duality. But I do feel like there is a lot of people that really do want to help people. And it is a hard thing to keep your mind around as you're listening to the stories and what happens to the cult throughout the rest of the episode.
Dude, thank you so much for bringing that up. And that's something I would say just honestly as a rule of life. The American people are not the American government.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy looking at the polls and how elections go to tell that the American people do not 100% agree with the movements and actions of the American government.
Yep.
It's generally around 49, 51%, somewhere around there, on a good year. Same as the Palestinian people
Uh-huh.
are not Hamas.
Yep.
They are not the Palestinian government. Same as the Israeli people are not the Israeli government.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying this. I will still keep making fun of Schafer and his
That's perfect.
terrible night school practices.
Yeah. Well, in order to understand the next movement the cult takes, like the beginning of last episode, we're going to have to go into some history. And obviously, it's a lot of history. And I do apologize if that's not why you listen to us. If that's not why you listen to us, then probably just turn off all the parts that I do because I go into a lot of history stuff because I love it. And I hope you do too. But anyways, don't turn off the podcast. Listen to the history coming up next. Well, we all know that the Cold War obviously was between the United States and our allies, or NATO in that time, and the Soviet Union and the satellite countries that they had control over in a lot of ways. Well, to be fair, most of this was proxy wars set up in between up-and-coming nations like Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, and a bunch of others. Basically us giving money to them, giving money backing rebels, them doing the same thing to rebels on the other side and going in, and us just foiling each other's plans in each country, with, in between, the people of the country getting screwed over. Well, it especially extended over to South America, which had a lot of up-and-coming nations at this time. And Chile was one of these. Especially Chile was one of these. Well, in 1961, John F. Kennedy signed into law the Alliance for Progress, allowed us to invest or sometimes funnel money into countries in our hemisphere so that we could stop the tide of communism. They wanted to help bolster the infrastructure, schools, and of course, champion democratic governments. This is what we wanted to do, obviously, but it never ended up that way. Never ended up that way because we did some really shitty things. This led to a lot of fingers being dipped into a lot of the Latin American salads. And I wanted to use that reference because it just sounded funny. Well, it was no different in Chile.
A lot of spicy potato salads.
Yeah, it was just a lot of salad. I can just imagine the United States being salad fingers. Do you remember that old, awful video back in the day with salad fingers?
The nukes are rusty spoons. Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got you.
Dusty nukes. Well, the United States funneled a lot of money into Chile for people to fight the spread of communism, basically. Well, in 1970, Dr. Salvador Allende, who represented the Unidad Popular Party, or the Populist Party, won the presidency, right? So he beat out 2 other candidates, getting 1/3 of the popular vote. And I did mention this in the script, but he actually got 1/3 of the popular vote. Another candidate got 1/3 of the popular vote, and then Allende won in a runoff election. So it was those 2 together, and he ended up winning in the runoff election, which was like a couple days later, a month later maybe. And so he had won the presidency. This, of course, because he was the socialist candidate, was much to the chagrin of the United States.
Yes.
And I think everyone's favorite president, Richard Milhouse Nixon.
Richard Nixon.
Nixon. Yeah. Well, Allende wanted to nationalize the big companies so that Chile could reap the benefits instead of, obviously, the outside countries, which is, honestly, it's a big oversimplification.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it's big. I just wanted to kind of like not go too deep into the weeds because it's a whole nother thing in there.
It is. I'm cutting you off mid-stride here, Joey.
Go. Yep.
I want to say, if we are going to claim to respect democratic processes, that means respecting results we're not happy with from other countries. And
100%.
what you're dealing with is I don't want to say small and I don't want to say large, a thin country. Right?
Yeah,
Chile.
yes.
Chile is called Chile because it's shaped like a Chile.
Yeah. That's pretty funny, actually.
It's true.
Didn't think about that.
You never noticed that? Yeah, it's literally a dry Chile on the side of South America.
Yeah, I know. I notice it now. Yeah. I don't know.
So
The more you know.
But no, it's important to keep in mind that folks didn't just elect him once. He got close enough that they were like, I don't know, that was pretty fucking close. We're going to have a runoff election. He still came out on top twice.
Yep.
This was a democratic process.
Yeah. Well, and I also do want to say, too, and it's not just the United States funneling money into this country.
Oh,
it's Soviet Union as well. Soviet Union and the satellite states. And this is what we get into in the Cold War, is that both sides are just pincing, 2 pincers, any country that could grow, that could give them an edge over each other. It's not just the United States. It's freaking Russia. It's
especially if they were next to each other.
Oh, especially if they were next to each other. If there was a country that's close to the United States, Russia was putting money into them. If there's a country that's close to Russia, the Soviet Union at this time, we were putting money into them.
Yes.
So it's both sides trying to outmaneuver the other, and this is just all the countries in the middle are getting played. Yeah. And it kind of sucks. It sucks. So the United States was obviously funneling money into Chile to go against the elected president. Hence, the money was going to military coups, what they did in South America at this time, the CIA, because that's what they do. But now we can step back from the history lesson and get back into our story of Colonial Dignidad. Now that you know that Allende was nationalizing industries, we can take the viewpoint of people from the colony, right? So I wanted to give you the macro of everything happening in the country, and now let's go down to this little micro area, even though we'll find out Colonial Dignidad had a huge effect on what happened in Chile in this time. So all around Colonial Dignidad, communist and union members were going into neighboring farms, planting their flag on it and saying, we now own this land. So I want to remind you too, I'm describing what they're looking at as they're staring out at Colonial Dignidad and what they're seeing from their point of view, right? So I don't want you to think that this is what's happening. And it was, in general, what was happening, but there was a different kind of feel to it of what's happening from the other side of it and from what's happening from a bunch of white Germans that are sitting in a compound, right?
Little different points of view, let's put it that way.
Yeah, different points of view. And I want you guys to understand, too, that this is how I'm bringing this, because we gave you the macro, now we're doing the micro, looking out. So at this moment, Schafer obviously is like, we need to start doing some stuff about this. So Schafer sent people to meet with the farm unions that were forming around the colony, right? So the farm unions, people getting together, being like, we're going to form unions, we're going to get better work hours, we're going to do these kind of things. The native Chilean unions people basically threw them out after hearing about 5 sentences from them, knowing what they wanted when they arrived. Because Schafer obviously was trying to smooth talk them over with, no, it's okay, we're on your side too, Yeah. Well, it's time for Schafer to put in the next devious part of his cult scheme. You can take it right out of the cult playbook, that Schafer wrote for himself.
Truth.
He started preaching to everyone that the communists were coming to take their community.
The Reds are coming. The Red coats are coming.
Yes, that's what he was saying. He was saying they will come here and kill you. He did it speaking in German, so it sounded even more threatening.
Place one lantern in the clock tower if there's a boy. Place 2 if it's the communists. Oh no, it's the communists! Run!
Yeah. Well, he obviously started the us against them, and the outside world is threatening us, which just freaking like straight out of every cult.
This was mirrored almost perfectly with Jonestown when they were convinced that there were fucking hitmen coming in and the government.
Yep, it lined up. Outside world's threatening us. He got into that. We need to start defending ourselves, which is the next part. Schafer started having colonists take watch of the main road leading into Colonial Dignidad to watch for communists armed who could come take their land, in quotations is what he said. So he's knocking this out of the park right now.
Yeah.
Schafer also put the colonists to the task of building a huge fence, long all around the property with barbed wire and a gate at their door. So now it wasn't open anymore. It wasn't this like, come to the hospital. We want you to come in. We're like open. We're trying to help. They're now segregating themselves from the rest of the population. And they're saying, here's our wire fence. You can't come in, you know?
Yeah.
He preached it was for their security against the communists. But funny enough, a lot of the time, we don't know we are building our own prisons around us.
Very true.
So we're in 1970, right?
Mhm.
And the cult has been going on for about 9 years. You know, he did his stuff in Germany beforehand for about 6 years and traveled around for a tiny bit. But they've been in Chile for about 9 years, building their compound, building everything for him. But it can't be said enough that most of these people came from Eastern Germany, where the Soviet Union ruled. Schafer, again, like I told you before, found this fear and knew it well himself and used it against the people to get his way. He preached that if the communists win, we will be forced to leave and maybe have to go back to Eastern Germany or be forced out into the wilderness where we'll die, we'll starve, things like that. This fear was constant and continuously pounded into their heads while he was preaching. Well, in their normal men's meeting, like we discussed from the last episode, there are 50 chairs, right? Remember the traitor in the back of the guy's chair?
The traitor chair. Yeah.
So great. Yep. Well, just like that, and that showmanship, he placed a handgun on every person's chair and said, this is for you to keep on you at all times. Most of these people in this place had not held a gun before or had not been around guns as much, even though they were from Germany in that area. Most of them were from Eastern Germany where the fighting wasn't as bad, and they were young some of them were young when they got to Colonial Dignidad. So it's kind of like he's really starting to radicalize his cult members, right? So everybody's getting armed.
I appreciate how much he comes in and just rips off the Band-Aid with his cult approach. Because a lot of times it's just I'm going to spend the next 6 to 9 weeks preaching cherry-picked gospel about why you should pick up the sword, why you should fight back. And then I'm going to be boom, cache of guns underneath your seats.
What I think is really interesting is that, like you said, he rips off the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
His first thing to do is he shocks them, right?
Yeah.
He gives them this huge shock. And then he goes, this is why we're doing it.
He tells them how to respond.
Yeah, he tells them how to respond.
Damn, he's good, dude.
Yep, and he's good. It's great. I mean, it's terrible, obviously, but he's so good at this thing. You know, it's not a slow rollout. It's a boom, hit you with it, and then let me roll you into why we're doing it.
They don't have time to talk about it. They don't have time to think about it, to talk amongst a group well, I don't really agree with this. Do you? No, I don't actually feel this way either. It's just literally the shock of, holy fuck, there's a gun in my hand, and now I'm being told what to do with it, and I'm looking around, and now everybody who's shaking their heads around me also have fucking guns in there.
Yeah, so it's they're radicalized you.
It's such a subtle peer pressure. He's a piece of horrible shit, but he's so good. I can see why
he's good.
He basically wrote the book on modern cult.
Yeah. Well,
Damn.
This was just the beginning. As more and more guns started being imported into Colonial Dignidad,
Mhm.
In 1971, the first submachine gun was delivered to the colony, and Schafer ordered them to take it apart, and then it was time to learn how to make it. So he started putting them into production. Like I said last episode, some people were had a machine shop there, and they were metalworks as well. So these guys they were pretty smart. Like, they were geniuses. Some of them were good engineers at this thing. So they literally took the gun apart, found the springs, found everything, and they went, okay, cool. They started producing these things.
I call it Das Bullet. Like, one person got that joke. Sorry, I'm just throwing in.
Das,
I'm just
Das Boot.
Das
Das
Boot.
Boot?
Das Boot.
Das Boot. Oh,
which
yeah.
is what Das Boot was based off of. But Das Boot,
Ah,
great
yeah.
submarine movie. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
We used to watch that with my dad all the time. But yeah, I'm
Nope.
going full on hipster this year. So I'm just
Love it.
every week, every episode, I'm throwing out one reference to a movie that maybe one person saw. And it's probably that one person is me when I'm listening to this while I'm editing.
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch movies nobody watches, so I mean,
Yeah.
I don't watch movies that you watch because I just don't.
You just star in them.
Well, at this time there were national strikes, right? So
Mm.
in the country there was rampant poverty and starvation, and a few military coups. There was, around 1971, but that was because of a lot of other things happening, not because of the government at this time. Me and Gil had a nice conversation off there about this that, if you want, we'll go into one day.
We'll
But-
be dedicating an episode specifically to, we can't wash over this, Joey, Operation Condor.
I know.
There needs
I know.
to be
we
a
will.
fucking
Yes.
9-part series dedicated to Operation Condor and the
Yep.
dozens of Latin American countries that were overturned by the CIA government through psyops and experimental weapons. But
Yeah. Well, they also had no cigarettes too, and I will
No.
say that's probably the real reason why the protests were happening. And if you
That's-
ever listen to, that was huge. They had like a huge. They just didn't have any cigarettes. Like, countries all around them had them.
I'm a peaceful man.
Yeah.
I'd pick up guns immediately if I didn't have
Yep.
cigarettes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they were happening. Well, true to their mission, the people at Colonial Dignidad were making food packages, right? So they were making food packages for the surrounding farms, villages, for
Aw.
people who were starving, doing that's pretty good work, like they're helping because they have an abundance, like we talked about earlier. They did have an abundance of food. They were working hard, they were getting this stuff down, and some of the other people just didn't have abundance, so they're helping. They're doing their part, which is what we talked about earlier. Why I wanted to bring that up is because they still are trying to help. But also, Paul Schaeffer was still molesting and raping little boys. So
Yeah.
I have to keep going back to this because this is literally what was happening underneath all of these things. And I will keep going back to it because we have to remember that this is still happening. It's like a thing
Yeah.
that really made this awful, besides the torture, the stuff going on, and we'll see there's more stuff coming, but this was still continuously happening, and it gets worse. I also want to say that while the people were still trying to live, and it's sometimes hard to understand, but some of the colonists during this time, especially the women, were trying to move into their careers, right? They were still believing that there's futures coming, and a lot of the women at this time were doing nursing at the hospital that they had on the thing. So there's a beautiful couple moments in the documentary where this lady's talking about, like, I was looking at my future. I have a future in my life. I'm going to live. I want to be a nurse. I want to, I'm at a hospital. Makes sense. Well, the hospital was the place that most heavily received the attention of Schafer, of course. The hospital was also a place they used to punish the German boys who would masturbate. Literally, that was their only crime. It was a sin, and it was punished terribly. This is what really got me. So they would inject things into them,
No.
as well as put into their porridge the little injections too. So they, even if they didn't inject them, they would still put it in their food. One of the boys who was adopted into the colony from Chile said it seemed like they were injecting them with crude oil
Fuck, dude.
for just doing what most boys and young girls do too. To be fair, like, that's normal.
Yeah.
And Schafer would also, after they brought them into the hospital in little rooms where they would separate the local German boys from the the adopted Chilean boys that they would adopt into them, and they would shock the boys' genitals over and over
What
again
the
with an
fuck?
electric shock. They would put them on them, and if they saw, something happening, like a little rising on the boy, they would continuously do it over and over again. And they would just shock them. And there's one, like, watching the documentary, it's the boy who had it happen to him describing these things to you. And it hits. And this was a moment, and I talked to Gil about it, is like, this is a moment where I just, like, I cried, because this is, you can see in their eyes, they gave up, and one of the nurses that she talked about it, she said she would take them into the room. She wouldn't see what happened, but she would see them when they came out, and they just looked like there was not a person there anymore. And
Just a shell.
And one of the things that it's not in the script, but I remember specifically, is they asked one of the boy asked Schafer, "Why are you doing this?" And he said, "So you will forget."
Like, dude,
Horrible.
this is like the amount that European history has just overly focused on young boys' erections is why do Europeans love young male erections so much? I don't know. Or hate them so much.
No idea.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there was no escape from this, obviously, because Schafer had raised them not to resist, and
Yeah.
they didn't, they thought they had done wrong, and they didn't understand in some ways what they had done wrong, because obviously when you're young, you don't understand what's going on with you, but nobody could do anything about it. Everyone was stuck.
Yeah.
Well, while all this stuff is going on at Colonial Dignidad, paramilitary people from Chile are flying into the airstrip at the colony and getting trained by the German ex-military people, and they are actively helping and training to overthrow the Allende-led government.
What?
And which is so crazy. While all this is
What?
happening, they're freaking training some of the Chilean paramilitary people to freaking fly planes. They're training them in tactics.
They're
which is
training
just
the
like,
coup.
yeah, they're training the coup, which
Jesus
is like
Christ.
even crazier to add into this, because like this is below the surface. Now we're getting up above the surface on what's happening, because that's just
So
was what this cult does.
There's a bunch of little boys getting shit injected into them for getting like fucking like wet dreams over here at the
Yep.
night school. But
Yep.
then during the day, during day school, you have
Yep.
right-wing paramilitary training that's fully backed by the fucking CIA, funded, probably being
Yep.
dropped off in CIA jets. Like,
Yep.
and with
Yeah.
CIA guns, with CIA ammunition, which at this point in time, Schaefer's like, more guns, more bullets, thank you, ma'am.
Yep, building up his arsenals.
Damn, dude.
Yep. Yep.
Fuck, this goes deep.
It's super deep. And in 1973, all the training and help and weapons that Schafer had funneled to and funneled through Colonial Dignidad helped Pinochet, the military leader who was appointed by Allende, take over the country and turn it into a military dictatorship. The country went from a democracy having elections every 4 years to not having an election until 1990, when Pinochet stepped down from power, which is a weird thing, but he was going to lose or get murdered. So me and Gil had talked about this offline too. He didn't want what happened to the previous people to happen to him. So he's like, all right, guys, I can already see where this is going. I can see that you went ahead for what I've been doing to you for the past, 14 years?
No.
20 years, I
No,
guess,
no.
almost?
Yeah, 78,
Set
80,
27.
90. What year did he step down?
73. Oh, no, he stepped down in 90. And so in 1973, he took over, so that's 27 years, right? 27 years.
Yeah, and
Yep.
like...
No elections.
And to give you an idea of like how brutal this motherfucker is, which God, dude, we need to do Operation Condor after this. How brutal
yeah.
he is. Salvador Allende, who just straight up got capped in the fucking head on the morning of the coup.
Mhm.
So much fucked up CIA shit that's been released about that date, which was the first 9/11, by the way, 1973 on September 11th. A lot of the world knew that as 9/11 before 2001 9/11. Anyways, fucking Pinochet immediately took every dissident, every left-leaning person, right? Rounded everybody up in a national, like, soccer stadium. Picture Super Bowl-sized fucking stadium. Rounded them up and had the military massacre everyone. Like, straight up, bullets to the fucking head, machine guns going off, massacred a stadium full of fucking people. Like, that's how he kicked off his dictatorship. There's God, it's killing me. There's a beautiful, beautiful fucking folk singer songwriter who died in that incident. Who was a leftist. God, I might put him as a theme song on Instagram for this episode. But God, he's so fun good. Anyways, Pinochet was a horrendous piece of shit. I wish he would have died when he was being born. I wish his mother would have had a miscarriage.
Yeah, I wish he would have just chosen a different life path. That's my goal for him.
Fuck that. I want him dead again.
Well, he is. I think he is dead now. So, well, this was leading, as we're just talking about, into the next section of Colonial Dignidad. If we can all remember, and Gil was just talking about it, Joseph McCarthy and the communist hearings that were held in the United States, right?
Yeah.
This is similar to what happened in Chile after the overthrow of Allende's socialist government. Well, except to be fair, at least we had trials for most of the people. In Chile, there were no trials.
No.
There were no trials. So people were disappearing very quickly, just like Gil said.
Yeah.
People who had either taken part in Allende's government, supported, or even had a family member that may have supported them, with or, of course, without evidence.
Yeah.
Colonial Dignidad sent buses down to the small towns, and the secret police of Chile, the DINA, would put people on the bus and send them to Colonial Dignidad. The prisoners had black bags on their heads, so they couldn't see where they were going, but they could tell they were going into the mountains because they were losing their breath. They could feel that they were going there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at Colonial Dignidad the political prisoners would be tortured. So now we're jumping into torture of political prisoners of this cult. And like we're talking about, everything that's going on underneath leads sometimes, like the injections and stuff like that, leads sometimes into their next venture, right? So Paul Schaeffer made some of the colonists dig out underneath the open barn where the hay was held, right? A huge and open brick wall underground prison. It was pitch black with only one slight opening to get down to it that was covered with a really, really heavy, huge concrete slab. They would use their machinery to open and move up and then put people down there as holding cells. Schafer oversaw the torture of these people, just like Schafer did to the young boys, almost like he was experimenting. He shocked them. They would ask questions, just like torture normally, and then depending on the answer, they would raise the voltage on the shock. Most of the colony people could hear people being tortured.
Holy shit.
Then fall silent, and then they'd hear another person would be brought in.
Holy shit.
And this is what continued for weeks, months, years.
Years?
It wasn't years. Yep. They were torturing people. It's crazy. And getting into it, Schafer started, they would have these things and they called them, I think, the potato cellar, which was what they called, it's kind of funny,
the
right?
Spicy potato
The spicy
cellar.
potato cellar, yeah. But it was, the place underneath the torture, the place underneath the barn was kind of like the holding facility, right? It was like a big room. It was like, there's nothing down there, just big, big columns. And in the documentary, they go down into it, kind of show you what it looks like. It's just big, kind of open room with a bunch of pillars and columns, in pitch black.
Yeah.
Well, the potato cellars were these places under, obviously, where they would keep a lot of potatoes.
Called it.
But it was just a bunch of doors, almost kind of like a motel, right?
Okay.
And a bunch of doors, and they're all locked from the outside.
Okay.
He gave each colonist, sometimes they would have a couple colonists together to go clean them, right? They would, after they, somebody was in there getting tortured.
For days, weeks, months, years.
Yeah. So they end up go clean it, for the person that's in there. Sometimes go feed them. And a lot of these people didn't, some of them heard them getting tortured, right? But you don't talk about that. They wouldn't talk about it because they thought there was a reason for it,
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously from what they've grown up doing or grown up happened to them. So they would, there was parts in it, and the lady talked about it that, they could be, the people in the colony could hear people being tortured, everything. And then they would do mental torture, right? Emotional torture. One of the things they use, which is so diabolical and crazy,
Creed's debut album.
Oh my God. Actually, it's kind of where I was going with this, is they use one specific song would play on the loudspeakers before they get tortured. Each person.
Ice,
So
baby.
each person,
Doom, 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 doom,
that
doom,
would be
doom,
my
doom.
song, I think, if I knew I was going to get tortured. They would play that song over it
Get up
so
and
that they could,
listen. Ice Black
they would come up and play that song. That would be my torture song. Either that or with arms wide open. What would your song be if the your torture song?
If I had to have one song that I would be tortured with, right, playing it for hours as my nipples and my balls are being electrocuted, it would be It Was Beautiful by Straw House. That would probably be my song, which I would be like, you are torturing me with the song that I love. Shout out Straw House music.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that. It was beautiful. The torture was not, though. The torture was not. Yeah.
You're never going to be able to play that song again without thinking of spicy potatoes and nipple clamps.
Hey, you know what? I feel like that's why the song is written.
That's what I'm here for, Joey.
Yeah, exactly. Well, adding into that part of it, that mental torture, they used dogs to rip people apart.
They're German.
And he would sick the dog on them. Yeah, right. German shepherds. And, While the prisoner was chained up to a chair. That's normal. All of this stuff is like coming right out of a Nazi playbook too. Like literally they're doing what was happening.
We're going to put salt and pepper in your food. How would you like that? No one likes flavor. And they're just like, actually, this is quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, the spicy potatoes that they were giving people were just really bad because they were just salt. The spice was just salt. There's tons and tons of salt.
Oh, that's not hot enough for you? Don't do it. Put some mayonnaise on. Spicy mayonnaise. Bet you can't take that.
Yeah, I mean, if they were in Texas, they would be putting ranch on the potatoes, and I just don't I can't Texas. I
can't Texas.
I can't Texas. I just can't. Keep your ranch. Ranch is good on salads, right? Ranch is good on salads, but you just can't put it on. You can't put it on everything. Look, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I don't do it, but I will say French fries are just a fried potato salad. All right, that's all I'm gonna say.
That's a hot take. I feel like that's
also
the hottest take you've said today.
A majority of our listeners are from Texas. We should really be cool with them.
Okay.
In the Dallas, Houston area.
I appreciate ranch and all of the ranch things that you do with ranch. Ranches are cool, but not. Yeah. Anyways, we'll digress. All of this torture and abuse and training of military units would lead to Schafer's so-called golden age.
Oh no.
And this is what General Pinochet said. After General Pinochet had taken over the country and killed off many of the communist dissidents, he visited the Colonial Dignidad, right? He's just like, thank you for doing literally what I didn't want to do.
Y'all have been like really cool with us.
Yeah. And Pinochet is just like, I love you guys.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. You guys are my people. And they're like, wait, I guess so,
If he's brown, is this cool? No, he's cool. The white folks up north support him. The CIA is he's cool, he's cool.
Well, after he visited, he was like, you guys are amazing. I want to gift Schafer a hefty salary. So he's like, I'm already taking money from everybody else. Now let's start giving it to you guys for doing my dirty work, pretty much. The stuff that like, in one thing I do want to say too about it, the stuff that they didn't know how to do. This is a thing that was really mentioned, is that most of the normal army people in Chile, just like just like in the United States Army, most people don't know how to torture people, and that's a good thing and a general idea, right? That's a good thing. that most people don't know how to successfully torture people to get information. But if we know anything about the Nazis, they know how to torture people and get information.
And that's a thing too. So like the classic, like any of the modern conspiracies about like they're gonna come in and they're gonna fucking black bag you and they're gonna take you away in a white van. This Operation Condor is literally where that archetype, that stereotype, that idea comes from. It was backed by the CIA, which also kept very close tabs on the movements of Nazis after World War II, e.g. Project Paperclip.
Yep.
They knew these were a bunch of fucking Nazis at this Nazi-ass cult. So when they reached out to Colonial Dignidad and said, hey, could you train some folks down here? Could you train our puppets for a coup? They were asking the fucking Gestapo to train Pinochet's forces. That's how fucked this situation is.
The fucking SS.
The same time you had Werner Braun like up there just being, I got figured out the rockets. We're going to the moon, everyone. Ha 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 ha.
No, hey, no. Werner von Braun was cool, okay? He's great. He got us to the moon.
Yeah, so at the same time that you had Werner Braun,
no Nazis.
but honestly, this is the first time I ever heard of Pinochet actually showing appreciation to anybody. He's God, I hate him so much.
It can be said too, and a lot of the colonists there, they sang for him, you know, because a lot of the big things that Schafer did was he created big shows, right? Because obviously he's trying to hide what's going on there. He's trying to create this universally liked, beautiful image of Germans here creating this amazing community. And they sang for him, and one of the colonists mentioned that he cried. They saw a tear in Pinochet's eye, and
he got Pinochet to cry.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, and obviously that's probably why he got the hefty salary. And also they got licenses for uranium, titanium, and gold mines, and funds for public works like bridges. So it was time for them to see the outside world, right? It's time for the colony to go out.
Yeah,
because obviously now that they have license to dig this stuff, they're going to get richer. Schaefer's like, I want more money. I want more time. I want more people, you know? And he's being praised as creating this amazing place with all these people that love him, that want the best for him, all the while this stuff is going on underneath. The abuse, the rape, the torture going on underneath, and, you know, but they created this beautiful flower on the top of it. And it just smells like shit if you really smell it. To be fair, you know?
Yeah.
Well, to get into the outside world, Schafer sent some of his followers out on buses, but they would pull down the curtains on the bus so none of the colonists could see anything going on. They couldn't see pictures of, like, women, you know, advertisements, like women in their underwear, or like selling bathing suits, stuff like, you know, things like that. They couldn't see anything going on because he wanted them to stay pure. They would reach their destination, and there's nothing around, obviously, because they're going out in the middle of nowhere for the most part to get to these mines, you know? And they couldn't mess up their pure little eyes. Schafer was like, nope, you guys aren't seeing anything. You guys also aren't going to see what's in the outside world because you might like it and you might not come back.
The pillar, the Führer. We must respect the Führer, which is me right now. And we're going to keep all the shades down because you know what will happen with the sun. You know the German constitution, it cannot handle the vitamin D, okay? It can only handle the vitamin S, the Schafer.
Oh my God, I just thought about it. SS, Schafer School.
The Schafer School.
The Schafer Night School. Well, like something out of a storybook, they easily and abundantly found gold wherever they dug.
Jesus Christ.
It was like something terrible. Yeah, like they get there and they're literally... He's literally walking around.
My toe! What's this?
Yeah. Grabs up a piece of dirt, flicks some of the dirt away, and it's just flakes of gold.
This shit keeps getting in my fucking sandals. Somebody clears this out of the way. Yeah, put it in the bag. I don't fucking care. So, he is Jesus.
Yeah, and what was funny is that the colonists, even with everything that happened to them, being tortured, raped, molested, and just overall wreck lives, they were still so eager to please Schafer.
If you saw somebody who treated you totally like shit, treated everybody you knew like shit, but you were in a religious cult where he was basically the closest thing to God, and he was accidentally stubbing and jamming his toes on gold.
Yeah, and that's something somebody said. It was just like they just viewed him as like everything was going right. You know, in this cult, everything that he did was in their eyes in a lot of ways. And sometimes, like, obviously they're getting rich because now
Gold
they have
everywhere.
Now they have gold out the ass. So
Got the Midas toe.
yeah. Well, from 1975 on, because stuff was going so well, Schafer took over bathing each and every boy he had, no matter how many he had in the colony. So he would take turns, right? So every day Schafer would have each of the boys vie for his sympathy to get the title of sprinter, right? The sprinter would be given the right to carry a gun and ride in the passenger seat while Schafer drove the car during the day. So at this moment, like, young boys weren't allowed to have guns, right? So it was a little much more. But when they were the sprinter and they did the best, they were allowed to carry a gun. So the sprinter would accompany Schafer to bed, obviously, and be abused, just like we've been talking about all along. But he created this thing so that people would fight for the opportunity. And the kids would. And even though it kept happening to them, they kept wanting it to be the sprinter because they felt like they were giving affection, getting affection,
admiration, respect,
in love in some ways, not good love, not right love, but just in their eyes they feel like, okay, God is here. You're the closest thing to God.
They're separated from their parents at this point 100%. The only real closeness that they have is their quote unquote brothers, which are next to them. Right, so it's their brothers, their family, right? Their same age family, and this person who's instilled themselves as a fatherly figure, and that's all the fuck they know. Is that this motherfucker trips over gold and gives you guns?
Yeah, right, and it gives you the opportunity for something.
Yeah,
you know, to aspire for something, no matter how good, how bad it is. You know, Schafer would also receive confessions of each boy. Every day they would have confessions, of course, just like we were talking about in the last one when he had confessions from the adults. Now he's doing it, and he's just specifically targeting these.
Yeah.
He would ask if anyone had hurt them, spoken ill, or abused them. And if it was another boy that had abused that other boy, Schafer would have them duel.
What?
The duel would be life or death for the boys, not with guns.
Holy fuck.
But they would fight each other. They would fight life or death because he wanted to pit them against each other so they weren't talking, so they weren't scheming against him. And it was such a manipulative move to put that in there. It's like, it's not about you joining and talking together.
It divides friendships.
Yeah, it's malicious. It's about all of you for me. I will help you.
Yeah.
I will help you go against them. And this is something the sprinter was also part of, is because he wanted them to fight. He didn't want them to unite against him.
Dude, this guy... Holy fuck, what was up with Germany at this point in history that it just educated so many people to be fucked up like this?
Yeah.
Like, this is... Again, this motherfucker's writing the book. Like, honestly, like, studying Schafer is an education in how cults operate and what to be on the lookout for when you see, herd mentality, crowd mentality to this day, whether it's like in social media or AI-driven social media posts or like mass media or news or anything like that. It's like, this is so fucking classic. Divide and conquer. Fucking solid.
Oh yeah,
dude.
he's awful. Well, and what's crazy is that as all of this is going on at the same time as dissidents were being brought in and tortured and killed, the boys were being abused. Women were almost held as slaves.
Mhm.
Schafer had his followers out digging for gold, building bridges,
Yeah.
farming, and they were still making weapons. All of this, I don't know how it balanced. Honestly, this whole operation was going on at the same time.
Busiest cult I've ever heard of.
He's keeping them busy, and I think that's the biggest thing. He's keeping everybody busy doing a million different things so they can't focus on the tragedies, the horrible things happening, right? They're just working, Well, in 1976, on September 21st, the ambassador of Chile to the United States was killed in D.C. by a car bomb. The United States blamed it on Contreras, who was the leader of the DINA, which is the Secret Service in Chile at the time, and he was sent to Colonial Dignidad to hide out. So Contreras, who was second in line to Pinochet at this time, he got sent to Colonial Dignidad just to hide out.
To hide out?
To hide out.
Like, they trusted them that much.
Yep. And they built a house. So, like, there's this off the property. It's on the property, but, like, just, like, kind of set off to the side, held behind a bunch of bushes, bunch of trees, so you can't really see in. Can't really do anything, can't really go to it.
We've got fine wines. We got all of the cheeses. We've got the spicy potatoes. We have boys ages 8 through 12. What? I said we have boiled potatoes.
So when this happened, right? So I want to say also too, a lot of times, they knew, like, the people knew that there was a person there, because they were actually having to cook for him, and some of the cooks were saying he had a special diabetic diet that made them understand, okay, this is somebody different here that we haven't had before. So they had to do it. They said they never saw him, that he never went out, he never did anything, but they knew that somebody was there. They just didn't know it was Contreras because they all knew him from, that he had visited before as well. Well, now that the United States was like, you need to throw Contreras in jail, which is what they said because they blamed it on him. Yeah, obviously they were like, this is all him, right? This is him. Well, Pinochet was like, we got to start hiding what happened, right? Because what if the UN, what if NATO starts coming in here and starts researching what's happening here? What I did, what Colonial Dignidad did, right? So they're saying, okay, Schaefer's looking at this saying, it's time to start hiding everything we've done. He sent out some colonists who knew how to use machinery, like big backhoes, diggers that they had. They sent out and dig monstrous holes and bury the bodies that they had killed and murdered these people.
They straight up dug mass graves.
They dug mass graves. But one of the colonists, as he was digging, he said, digging up the bodies to dig more mass graves to bury them in. He said he didn't see bodies. All he saw was big piles of white fat, tufts of hair, and bones. Pretty much everything left after a body has been burned.
What the fuck?
They were murdering them and burning them just to hide them because they had so many.
Yeah.
They were scared. It was estimated that there were in the hundreds, almost 1,000 bodies buried in and around the property of Colonial Dignidad.
Jesus Christ, man.
This will change and like move into the next part of it, which we'll go into a little later, about the surrounding people coming to give a little talking to Colonial Dignidad. So yeah, because a lot of these people were from the surrounding towns.
Of course.
They weren't shipped in from the cities. They were shipped in from the surrounding towns of people who would just support, we went into it already about people supporting Allende and all that stuff. But yeah, it is awful. And the guy who was digging him just said he could smell it, and he knew in a way what he was doing, but he couldn't say no, like we always talk about. Like he had to do it.
He had to desensitize himself. He had to do his fucking job. He had to,
Yep.
Fuck, man.
Well, continuing with the violence surrounding Colonial Dignidad, in 1978, Argentina and Chile went to war over 3 small islands, right? And of course, the colony lent their support with weapons and other arms. And I do want to also say that Colonial Dignidad is like in the Andes, right? So it's in the Andes Mountains, and it's in this like weird area that kind of leads its way into Argentina. So it's a place where they can funnel guns through it. They can house soldiers, right? Just going into it, and that's what they started doing. This is where the German Secret Service comes into play.
Jesus
right?
Christ, dude.
Yeah, so we're going into like I'm telling you, this is spanning so much.
This is like the most pedo octopus situation I've ever fucking heard of. Like this is rivaling Epstein. Like this is just fucking tentacles on fucking everything. Like,
and what's crazy is you don't really hear about Colonial Dignidad,
Not
even
at all.
though in this whole area, and I mean, sure, in Chile and Argentina, they know these people. You know, it's crazy. They know these people, but in the general sense of it, it is a huge part of history, especially in South America, especially in foreign politics, geopolitical politics. You know, well. The Chilean army used Colonia as a base of operations and housed soldiers, as well as built high-power radar dishes on their property. Then came the big kicker in my eyes. The army moved its sarin gas laboratories and stores into the colony.
What?
Because they thought, who can we trust?
We can trust the Nazis.
So now the colony was a producer of sarin gas, adding into their long line of arms dealing, arms manufacturing, abuse, and torture.
Torture training, body dumping, arms dealing, arms manufacturing, CIA training outpost.
Yeah. Schafer made the colony almost like its own black market country.
This is the original School of the Americas. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's where all the secret police in like Latin America, or like all the secret police from Latin America go to train at the School of the Americas.
That's another history.
Yeah. Like,
well, he was profiting from every deal made, of course, and every move made, and his followers were just following along because they're just, it's fine, right? Schafer says it's great, we're going to do it. And they noticed, too, obviously. They noticed all the army people just going in and out of the Colonial Dignidad. Just in and out, and every day, new people, right? And they noticed people being dropped off and, you know, all that stuff. They noticed, but again, like we say, they couldn't say no. They couldn't do anything about it. They, again, said, like, everything was right. Everything he taught and preached was the gospel truth. How could you say no? Well, and all the horribleness that happened, there's actually kind of quite a cute story. And I wanted to bring it because, like, like we said earlier, you got to see these people just trying to live their lives as well, you know? It can't just all be doom and gloom. I mean, it can be, but I like to come up with the story of two people in there, right? And there was this cute story of the couple that originally had danced together. The one that ended all the dances, right? So, well, they still liked each other.
Aww.
And they had been able to continue conversations on radio using almost a code, right? So, you know, when they were sitting out and watching the roads, you know, each person would watch a part of the road when the communists were taking over. Yeah. When they're
between the
they would
wire.
talk. Yeah, between the barbed wire. They would talk to each other, and like they had different outposts. So they would have to call each other to be like, everything's okay. This is Watchtower 3, blah, blah, blah. Well, these two, when they'd be watching the road at the same time, they would call each other, and they created like almost like a code. So one of them would let the phone ring 3 times to let them know it was the other person. And then they would quote Bible scripture to each other, you know, just kind of being like, as they were talking, they would quote it and kind of hear each other's voices. And it was very cute. Well, after reading the Bible for a while, you know, obviously in the Bible it said that marriage is necessary. Marriage is fine, you know. They wanted to get married to each other, you know, and they're both in their 30s and they have established themselves. This guy was a machine operator, so he was helping make the guns. He's like, I'm good at this. I'm doing a great job. I want something more. They're in their 30s, right? You know, you kind of get there. I'm in my 30s. You know, it's fine. So the man went up to Schafer and said, obviously, I want to start up a relationship with this woman. And Schafer obviously denied him immediately.
Petty as fuck.
Yep. petty as fuck.
You was the one there that night that ruined everything for everyone. I told you, keep space for Schafer and the Lord between you two. But no, there was no space. How can the angels get through if there is no space? How can Schafer get to you if there is
Well,
no
it
space?
can be said that this guy's in his 30s, so he's out his target demographic. But
Yeah, but Schafer literally put traitor on the
Yes.
back of the fucking chair that was left for the
Oh, he's
guy who
petty.
simply asked,
Yep.
after reading the pamphlet, very sacred to Germans.
Oh, they
Germans love
love
pamphlets.
pamphlets.
But
Yep.
after reading the pamphlet, so yeah, no, the place looks fucking fantastic. I was just wondering, like where are we at in the process of getting our own home as referenced in the pamphlets? And they were like, I thought you were family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought you were family. No. This is okay. We will have meeting about it tonight.
Yeah. Come to the meeting. I took a poop in his chair. Ha 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 ha. Funny European joke. Funny German joke. Ha ha. Hitler, you wouldn't get it.
He's petty.
Yeah, he's petty as fuck. Yeah, he's petty. He basically said, yeah, that's not happening. You have to look for something else. Not even someone else. You have to look
What?
for something else. Meaning, nobody's getting married here. Well, after that, the lady went up to Schafer and asked the same thing. He responded to her by shouting at her, you need to get your life in order first. A whore like you rotten bitch. How many men have you been with already? Ugh. This is your, Messiah saying this to you, right? He wrecked
Yeah.
her. And she honestly said, I didn't even know what a whore was. It's like, I didn't even know what that was, right? Well, funny enough, and why this is a cute story in the end, is because Schafer came back to her
Mhm.
5 minutes later, and she was still standing there. And he's like, why are you still here? And she responds with such a G thing. My life is in order. Oh! Dropped a bomb on Schafer. And
Damn.
honestly, it was great.
She Schafer swiveled.
Yeah,
Schafer.
she did. And and that's
Damn.
the crazy part is she's just she's telling this guy in a way I see it as she's looking at God, in her life. She's looking at God going is this guy this guy doesn't know me right now because my life is in order. I'm doing great. I'm in my 30s. I'm 34 at this time. I like this guy.
Mhm.
He's super handsome. I love the way he looks. I love what he does. He's a great example of a man in this group, right? That's what she's thinking in this part. And in a rare point
Yeah.
of, I guess, emotion, or maybe he just didn't freaking care
Dissidence?
anymore, honestly, he let them get
Yeah.
married.
He's like, well, damn. she
Yeah,
makes a good
they had
point.
a small ceremony, and he even
Aw.
let them go on a small honeymoon. They
What?
left, right?
What?
On that honeymoon, they got to hug another person of the opposite sex and kiss for the first time ever.
Holy fuck, dude.
They went to Valparaiso, Chile, which is near the beach. And they said, oh, this is one of the funniest things that they said. They broke the bed on their honeymoon, not because they were having sex. They made the point about it, but because they were jumping
Okay.
around acting like children because it was their first time as adults or even young children being away from the colony. They just had freedom, and they just they were so giddy about it because they got to do something besides work.
God.
They just got to chill and be together to not, and I'm pretty sure they probably had sex after that, but and then the bed was probably broken while they were having sex, but they did break the bed jumping around, which was, I thought, just it was such a monumental thing for them. And looking at the cult, it's monumental for the cult, right?
Yeah. This is the first, as far as I know, this is the first time that Schaefer's conceded.
He did.
Also, Joey, you just made somehow the only PG description, the only Disney-worthy description of a honeymoon that breaks the bed that isn't sex.
Right?
I don't know how you did it, but you just took us to that moment.
And I tried.
That is fucking
And I tried.
adorable in a horrible
and
way.
I want to, like, again, like, I bring us to this because these things are also happening in these moments, you know, moments of extreme horribleness, and then these moments for just these tiny moments. And they talk about in the documentary, we just have sometimes these tiny moments to ourselves. And it wasn't even like a big moment. Some of them were like a minute between people. Some of them were like a second where they got to not think about the work or the preaching that was going on there or the rape and abuse. Sometimes they all talk about these tiny little moments. Well, even after all this freedom, they still went back to Colonial Dignidad. What went through their mind is something that Schafer preached to them. Whoever leaves was never one of us in the first place.
Damn.
Pulling on them strings. But if it wasn't just the normal thing, Schafer took away their children and allowed them to only see them one time a week. So these two, the couple had children, right? So a couple years later, they had children. The children weren't even allowed to know their parents as mother and father. They were called aunt and uncle because Schafer was the only parental figure that could be in their life, right? So he did what he did everybody else. He separated them from their kids, and he said, you're not their dad, you're not their mom. You're an aunt, you're an uncle.
I love it when you call me Big Papa. Papa.
Yeah, and that was his nickname, Big Papa.
Wait, was it really?
It could have been. I don't know.
No.
They called him Uncle, actually. They called a lot of everybody else, all the men there that were on were called uncles. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
And aunts, because they, remember, we are family. All these little things connecting. Well, fast forward a little bit. So, during one of their whole colony meetings, because they had these basically where he'd get up and he'd preach. Everybody was sitting at the dinner tables there right after they ate, nice and comforted. He'd just preach to them, talking about stuff, talking about the day, talking about what they should be doing, living the new rules, whatever was happening at the time with all the children, all the adults. And Schafer sitting up in his chair on a stage, almost like a pedestal, right? So he's in this kind of nice wraparound chair around his head so he can look like he's this amazing man, this kind of not necessarily godlike figure, but you're still looking up at him, right? Well, very regal looking.
Yeah.
One colonist by the name of Vetter asks some questions to Schafer because he was basically fed up.
He vetted him.
He took Eddie Vetter. Yep. Yeah. Basically asking, why can't we have time to ourselves? Why do we work all day and pray for our bread, not making any money, right? And this was the same guy that talked about when they'd go on a hike sometimes in the mountains, and Schafer would take him out there. They said that was the one time they got those few moments of peace, of not thinking about it. It's the same guy. Schafer responded, who wants to answer him? Basically saying, who's gonna beat the shit out of him?
Yeah. Or who's gonna call themselves out.
Yep.
Damn.
And one of the colonists stood up.
It was that division move.
One of the colonists stood up and beat Vetter down and kicked him unconscious, while Schafer looked down and smiled, then said, so, what else? Are we done with this topic? He's just some poor devil anyway.
God damn, dude.
Yep. And what's really even worse about this is that the guy who beat him down was part of the couple that just had their kid in their honeymoon.
God damn.
Let me just ruin that cute story for you, by the way. Yeah.
All of a sudden, the kicking him wasn't, it was cute when they were jumping on the bed, but now it's just kind of like, now I'm just picturing them jumping on this
dude's head
it's
instead of the bed.
It's not as cute anymore. Yeah.
Sorry to ruin that nice, cute story for you guys, but
thanks, Joey.
That just makes sense. That's kind of what this was about. He gave them the leash. He said he gave them a little distance.
Took the dissident, turned them. They became big on loyalty. Classic.
Exactly.
Damn, he's good.
Well, throughout the
Yeah.
years, obviously, in Colonial Dignidad, the mood of the country was changing. And many relatives and human rights groups started protesting at the gates of Colonial Dignidad.
The rest of the world.
Yeah, pretty much everybody. And this is a huge thing because it's true. The rest of the world was going to the gates of Colonial Dignidad and protesting. While all this was happening in Colonial Dignidad, in Chile, everything was changing as well.
Yeah.
General Pinochet introduced a referendum to basically say that I'm going to stay in power. Do you agree with me? And this was in 1988.
After how many years of white vans, black bags, secret police, he's like, does anybody disagree?
Yep. 73 was when he came in power. And this is 88, so 15 years. Yep.
Yeah.
This was the beginning of the end for him. Because the majority of the people said, no, we do not want you to stay in power. And in 1990, like we had talked earlier, fearing for his life that whatever happened to Allende was going to happen to him, he stepped down. This was the beginning of the end for Colonial Dignidad, as the new government that was voted in was going to go after them for any violation of law or tax code. Yeah.
Just always have to get people on
It's
tax
the
code.
freaking way you get them.
Not the training of the secret police, not the which, by the way, would have been massive amounts of illegal arms coming into the country. Not the sarin gas manufacturing, not the mass graves, not the systemic pedophilia. But like, how'd you fill out that 10W? How'd you fill out that form over?
Oh, you missed a comma there, right? So the new president who was voted in, Patricio Alwin Azócar, went after Colonial Dignidad, right? Because he's like, these people have been here long enough. These Germans, they don't look like us. We don't want them here anymore, right?
I think it had more to do with you trained everybody who mass murdered the country.
Well, I also want to say that Patricio was part of the same party that the that the guy Pinochet was for.
Oh, okay.
So he's looking for scapegoats right now. He's looking for scapegoats.
You're right. You're right.
And
I'm like totally not like them. I've never cried.
Yeah. If,
He is a German accent.
Well, I mean, yeah, it makes sense, right? Well, the Chilean government took away the funding for the hospital that was on their thing, which was such a big draw for them, and in effect closed it down, bringing in troops to take the children out, right? So now the same troops that were using, for the most part, using that compound to go into Argentina, who trained there, were now going in as enemies. And Schafer, ever the opportunist, of course, took this time to rally everyone in the colony against the authorities and started using the media, the news outlets, started getting interviews with the children and the nurses at the hospital.
Damn.
Schafer then sued the government. And unlike most other times, he won.
What?
Which allowed the hospital to reopen.
What?
Yep. He won because they had so many lawyers. He had all the politicians in his pocket. He had governors. He had everybody he knew. Just this one person was looking to ruin him. Everybody else in Santiago de Chile, the capital, were just, they don't care. They still like this guy. So now, he invites all of the children from the surrounding towns to celebrate at the hospital.
Oh, God.
This fucking guy.
Why specifically the children?
He wants the children.
Yeah, I know why, but I'm just saying, like, what was the PR stunt? Like, next generation, Schafer Night School. Like, what?
No, it's I understand where you're coming from, but it's also because children on video are going to look great going into the hospital. This hospital is for them. This hospital is to, I
understand the PR reasons, but how do you kick off a celebration that's like, okay, celebration, we've won the new dictatorship. Only kids, though. Only kids can come. Like, what do you...
I don't know.
That's so fucking weird. I know
Yeah.
why he did
Well,
it. I mean, it's great PR
yep.
and keeps his bed warm at night. But like,
Horribly, yeah.
I'm just being honest. But
Yeah,
like,
no, it's true. I think he just, and it was the Colonial Dignidad had like youth groups in some ways. And I think also that helped. Youth groups in the
Gotcha,
area. And this
gotcha.
will come into play in a minute later. Well, a few teenage boys were about to bring down his whole empire. Finally.
Hell yeah, Lost Boys style.
Yep. In 1996, a letter was written from a young Chilean boy at the mission to his mother, right? Of what was happening to young boys at the school. The mother, just like in the last episode, went to the court and relayed her concerns. In November of 1996, the police entered Colonial Dignidad, cutting through the locks, breaking down doors without asking, and can I say finally, they came looking for Paul Schaeffer to freaking arrest him.
Jesus Christ.
As he now had an arrest warrant. Well, he was tipped off. Obviously, he wasn't there. Schafer had taken the boys that were, the two boys that were in the complaints, that had the complaints for them, to the mountains and hidden them under leaves so the police couldn't find them and get the evidence they needed against Schafer. He put them literally in the forest.
They were dead? Were they
No,
dead at
they
this
were alive.
point? Or were they just...
No, he said...
They were just standing
No,
straight up with like 5 leaves on their head. And he's like, you can't see us over here. Look at gold. Kicks rock, it turns into gold.
And it's in the Andes. So
What?
they're not, the police aren't going to go into the Andes mountains to go find them. They don't care.
Yeah, no, fuck that noise.
But,
yeah.
I mean, they cared to look for these people, but it's just, they hid him out there. And he also was hiding as well. It's so stupid. Well,
I picture a Scooby-Doo like escape boat scene where he's just like, and it's just like 2 boys tied up in the back with like leaves on their heads. Like, what
it's
This is so cartoonish.
It's so cartoonish, but they escaped, and it's so terrible. Well, while the police were in the compound, right? So the police are just going in there. The colonists sat there with guns pointed at the police.
Damn.
It was such a very Waco-esque moment, honestly. But they did not find him, and the police had to leave. But police searched everywhere, but could not find him. They literally went to us neighboring towns. They did go into the Andes to find him because he's the one they're looking for. They're not as much looking for the boys as they're looking for him.
Yeah.
But he always would narrowly escape their grasp.
Schafer Swivel.
He just gets out of there. And that's also because people were telling him, hey, police are coming here. They're going to catch you.
Yeah.
Leave. And he had all these high-powered friends. And the colony at this time, it made it even worse because they were treating Schafer as a hero and almost a martyr because, I mean, they didn't think he was dead. They knew he was alive, but they were treating him as like, you're the one, you're Jesus, you're getting persecuted. And he was sending notes back to the colony, right? Being like, I want to, tell you I love you. So his letters would end with, let the children know I miss them very much. With love, your friend. Always. And they were crying. They were holding up pictures of him. He was now becoming the persecuted one, Jesus in their eyes. And he was getting even farther up the rung of godlike figures now, right? Well, Cristobal was the one who wrote the letter, right?
Yeah.
He was the one who wrote the letter. And a few of the other kids on the run with Schafer, as well as some of his highest followers. Cristobal's mom and some police worked tracking down Schafer, right? Cristobal's mom was relentless. She found him and took him home. There's a video of them.
Cristobal.
Took Cristobal home.
Yeah.
And there's a video of her sitting across the table from Schafer in one of his hideout places, just being like, I'm taking him home. I'm taking him home. I don't know what you're doing, while you're gone, all these things. And she's like, I'm going to come take him home because he wrote me some letters. And, she didn't say that he was being abused. She very tactfully skirted around that issue, knowing it was happening. And just was like, he was like, okay, fine. You can have your kid. Here's your, your information. Here's your, I think he had some kind of paperwork on the kid too. He was like, here's your paperwork. probably medical records of some sort,
Night school diploma.
night score diploma, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, after that, more and more complaints started coming in on abuse and rape from the children in the town that was about 20 kilometers from the colony, right?
Mm-hmm.
The parents and mothers were taking it to Schafer with allegations, one on top of the other. But freaking again, he did his little swivel, Schafer swivel,
Schafer Swivel.
sent 12 lawyers to the courts to break up all the allegations. And because he still had all this people in high places in the government, he got away with it. He's still on the run,
Jesus, dude.
but
I mean, he's had like
they're not actively searching
like-
for him at the moment.
he had like 15 years ish of like literally the dictator of the country fucking loving
Yep.
him. Loving him, needing him. He trained all the people that got the dictator into power. His influence isn't going away overnight. Like, that's just like homies in deep, but he's like
Yep.
second tier deep, which means he hired in all the other people that didn't get fired from that first round of the new dictator.
Yep.
And like, they still know him. They still love him. They still need
Yep.
him. Like, damn.
Well,
So fucked, dude. I had no idea he was this not ingrained, but straight up influential and spurring history.
they
Like they didn't just influence, he actually like fertilized history.
What's interesting, and I want to make this point. Pinochet didn't think of him as an equal, right? Pinochet looked up to him.
Fuck. That's not
That's high power. The high power people in Chile were looking up to him, not as an equal. And I think that's like
good. Yeah.
that says so much about this cult here.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I know I said it before, but the end is actually coming.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, it is coming. We're almost there. We're so close. We're so close. I mean, not in years, but in story. Because yeah. Well, anyways, two boys escaped the clutches on one of the holidays that they celebrated called the Permanent Vigil. The Permanent Vigil was more about youth, the youth cult, basically. They have it every year.
Some spicy potato celebration. Spicy spuds is what they called. That's what they were called.
Yeah, and everybody in the place comes together, play music, they like do, speeches, they talk.
Stand on opposite ends of the room.
Yeah, and they do like, it was funny because it's like, it literally, watching the video, reminded me of the Hitler Youth.
Oh God.
They were doing acrobatics, they were doing like synchronized walking, marching, pretty much, literally marching, and it just reminded me of like, he built his own Hitler Youth, but he built
Yeah.
the pedophile youth, basically. He built the pedophile youth, and he made it on this day that we celebrate youth group, the youth people, and him basically being a terrible pedophile.
Yeah.
Well, on July 26, 1996, a Chilean boy named Paulo and a German boy named Mueller. So, right, these two were, Paulo was born in Chile, Mueller was born in Germany. And, they were good friends at this point. They escaped Colonial Dignidad. And just like the boy who escaped in 1963, almost 33 years earlier, it was life or death for them.
Christ.
They escaped again to a nearby house, which was Paulo's family's house, because he was from there.
Spicy Underground
Yep.
Railroad. Spicy Potato Underground
Yeah,
Railroad.
literally.
Yeah.
Both of them actually made it out and escaped on their first try,
Okay. Nice.
which is crazy. They made their way, and it's literally paralleling the same escape the other person did last time in 1963.
Jesus.
They made their way to Santiago de Chile, again, to the German ambassador's house, who is the German ambassadors. It's not the same guy, to be fair, but the German ambassadors
How
are
does they keep
Yeah,
finding me?
they're the only ones that are doing anything and helping anybody.
Yeah.
The only place that actually seems safe here, because they know this
What a
guy.
twist.
The German people,
Yeah.
the German ambassadors know this guy and know what he did in Germany. So they're like, oh, of course this is what's
Christ.
happening. The young boy named Mueller and Paulo both went back to Germany. He sent them back to Germany because he's like, you boys aren't safe here. They're going to come and take you back if you stay here. And so he filed charges. Mueller, the young boy, filed charges in Germany against Schafer too. So now, because like, I mean, it's been what, like 40 years? 55, he had his first charges, remember? In Germany. I think it was 55.
Jesus.
So almost 41
41
years ago. Obviously, the charges aren't still going because they probably don't even have records of it because we have the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So that broke apart East Germany and West Germany. So I doubt they have any records of this. He now has new charges in Germany. So he's wanted again in 2 different countries. He's still wanted in Chile, wanted in Germany now. Well, he's just like, okay, well, great. I'm going to do what I did last time. So he flees to Argentina after he left the bunkers of Colonial Dignidad. And once Schafer had left, some of the colonists just left and went to other places. The couple that got married in Colonial Dignidad and had children went off into the woods to live with their children for a little while. And they started getting them used to them calling mom, dad, so they starts, it just starts getting, the man who would end up testifying in court of everything that happened there was instrumental also in helping the police find evidence of the missing people. This was the same guy that punched Vetter and kicked him while he was down. This is the same guy. He basically was a huge effort into helping people locate missing families and missing family members as well. So he was like, okay, I buried people over there. Obviously, I know people are looking for him. If you go look over there, that's most likely. So he was instrumental and felt like, in a lot of ways, he, obviously he's a victim too because he was also abused and raped when he was younger.
Can you explain what your loved one's fat and hair looked like? Okay, you said it's extra chunky. Okay, I think I put him over here. Hold on 1 second. Let me dig him up real quick. Hold on 1 second. Like, so like this dude, he did flip though. Like he still had that spirit of fuck Schafer.
He said, "I will gladly."
Yeah.
He said, "I will gladly help you." The only thing he did say was, he said, like, I don't want this to be in the newspapers tomorrow.
Yeah.
The reason he said that is because he still, without Schafer even being there, he still feared for his life. He knew that he was going to be killed.
Of course.
If he said, if the papers literally printed the next day, he said, I will testify anything you want, just don't put it in the papers. Don't put my name in there. But I want to help. And because, he'd also been a victim as well. A victim, and like we talked about at the beginning, he was a victim and an oppressor in some parts of this. So the duality will speak, that happens. So Schafer was now in Argentina. Again, planning to build another freaking youth camp.
How old is he at this point?
He's almost in his 80s, I think.
Jesus.
So he was born in 1921, I want to say. So yeah, he's about...
This motherfucker doesn't give up.
Yeah. He was in a wheelchair in part of this too, which is just crazy. He's surrounded by his security. He still has security. Like in the documentary, the security guy talks about it. He's sitting there talking like, yeah, we moved him here. We were in Argentina at this point. We bought a huge piece of land. Dude's still rich.
His security is potentially the kids of the kids of the kids that he did his Schafer things to at some point in time. It's like third generation Schafer sexual assaults and violations and all sorts of Schafer things.
Yep.
Yeah. God damn, dude.
That's pretty crazy. He bought his piece of property right in Argentina.
Yeah.
And even though he was wanted in Chile and Germany, they wouldn't find him for another 7 years after he got to Argentina. And in Argentina, they were some part of him looking for him because they knew that he was there. They didn't have any arrest warrants in Argentina, but Chile was putting pressure on Argentina to extradite him, right? And they're find him and extradite him because they're like, this guy has done a lot of shit. He needs to answer for. These people need answers. Well, he was arrested in March of 2005.
What?
He was living in a gated community farmhouse near Buenos Aires. in Argentina. And it took some time to negotiate the transfer of Schafer from Argentina to Chile, but it happened finally. And he was okay. So I'm going to go into this. He was convicted of 20 accounts of abuses and 5 accounts of child rape. That's all. From 91 to 96 is when they counted it. They did not have anything happening from 61 to 91. 30 years. They didn't account because they didn't have any witnesses. Well, if they did, they just didn't listen to them.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
Yep. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, where he died
Thank God.
on April 24th, 2010, at 88 years old. This is not even, that's 14 years ago.
What is it about evil people that just like, it's so hard to kill them? God damn it. Like, this dude's up there with like Kissinger. Like, what is it? I feel like
Yeah.
there was like a perfect balance at the time of the right amount of lead in the water
Yeah.
that just like kept those motherfuckers going. Like,
Kept him going. Yep.
and not just going, but like sexually going.
Yeah. He was still going.
This dude was so sexually motivated
Yeah. At even an old age.
into his fucking 80s. He wasn't getting
Yep.
Viagra like prescriptions, y'all. Like this was still a main motivation in his life. This is fucking he saw the rise and fall of his own cult, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then saw the rise and fall of multiple other cults that were emulating him. Like, he had to be sitting back
Yep.
watching the news like ESPN, and he was an old fucking football coach. He's like, don't want to make that fucking play. You know, like he
Yep. Yeah, he knew.
like
Yep.
he watched Jonestown. He watched Sharikyo. He watched like
Yep.
fucking Charles Manson. He watched all of that shit play out. Like, he was the OG. This is insane.
He started a lot of this stuff.
It's
well,
insane.
As well as him going to prison, a good amount of the other high followers in his community were also sentenced to prison. Of course,
Good deal.
with sentences ranging from small crimes, not
Mhm.
even big crimes, sometimes they would go for like a couple months, to aiding in sexual abuse of minors, which is a major crime.
Thankfully.
You know, and so some of them were going to jail for 20 years. Some of them were, and you know, in the documentary they do talk about it. They talk about like there's only one guy that's actually still in jail in it, and he's an older dude. I think the documentary was done a couple years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago. But older dude, one of the leaders, he was the financial leader. Basically, he was the one who went out and bought the rock grinder in the beginning when he was
Gotcha.
like, we're not making money, we need to go get rock grinder. And
Yeah.
it's him and his daughter talking, and he talks a lot about it very candidly about, you know, and she's like, she asked him, why didn't you leave? And he just said, what good would that do? You know,
Ugh.
why would I leave?
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, well, you start to see why they thought the way they did.
Yeah.
Well, Colonial Dignidad didn't end, though, right?
God damn it.
It's now a tourist resort.
Christ.
The Chilean government came in, and the people were still there. Like, I want to say this. People were still there, from still believing in this guy, right? And so the Chilean government was like, they came in I think the early 2000s, and basically said, we're going to update your stuff. We're going to pay money to update it so you guys can actually make a living and you're not just a leech, you know, getting all money from us. So we want you to make money and be able to support yourself. And so they put in like new things. They updated the pipes. They updated the electricity, did all that kind of stuff, so that now it's a tourist resort. I think there's hot springs, and it's basically because it's a beautiful area, the Andes,
Yeah.
rode into into Argentina. So a lot of backpackers and stuff stay there. Well, Colonial Dignidad lasted from 1961 all the way until 1996 under Schafer. And Schafer, who had been molesting and raping boys from 1955, was allowed to continue this whole time. Schafer was their leader, their preacher, and turned out in the end to be their savior and damn them at the same time. The colony put their whole life and effort into Schafer, and he took everything from them. Schafer was a true cult leader, and everything in this cult seemed like it created the playbook, like we talked about, for every other cult that started afterwards. From the sexual abuse, torture, brainwashing, segregation, all the way to arms manufacturing and sarin gas laboratories. Colonial Dignidad and Paul Schaeffer were the example that many extreme Christian sects followed down a horribly dark path to their own doom. Not only was this cult involved and had a huge hand in the everyday life of the average Chilean citizen at this time, but they also were an integral part of the world power dynamics between the Soviet Union and the United States. It can't be said enough that so many young and old people's lives were ruined by this terrible man. And honestly, people who turned a blind eye for too long to the atrocities that Paul Schaeffer was causing and performing also share a portion of this blame. All of the victims of Colonial Dignidad deserve justice, and I don't know if they ever received it, even with Schaeffer going to jail. And that's it for Colonial Dignidad and Paul Schaeffer. Thank you for listening.
God damn it, Joey.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I know. He died in jail. That's it.
this piece of shit faced no justice at all.
No,
I'm sorry, but like the handful of years is not
he was
shit.
he was too old to care.
At a certain point,
Yep.
you've taken too many people's lives to actually be able to face justice in one lifetime. He's the type of motherfucker that you wish hell exists for. You know?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for digging into this research. Thank you for the hours you spent and the tears that you shed and the heartbreak that you delivered to us. Thank you.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening to both these longer episodes, honestly, because, I mean, you know, we could have split it up into 3 episodes probably, but I think 2 of just this really longer one is great. Well, we want to start to actually give a shout out to some people that supported us so far. Been there either since the beginning or joined along the way. Well, this time I want to thank you, my coworker, Morgan. Thank you for all listening, for the ideas behind stuff, for chatting sometimes about things going on with the podcast, or even parts of it that I'm like, hey, I should look into that. And he's like, yeah, you should.
Was it Morgan who I met the other week when I stuck into your work and I got a very complicated pizza that recommended what is it? Messages from Magnolia, the Jacques Filet
That
book.
was Steve. That was Steve.
I want to give a
Yep.
shout out to Steve. Steve's the shit. If you're in Asheville and you're going to a pizza place, just ask for a Steve. I'm not gonna blow up Joey's spot. I'm not gonna do that. But ask for Steve. If there's a Steve there, ask him if he reads Jacques Filet. If he does, Joey's working in the back. You should just creep around the corner just behind the bar and go in there and look. He probably has a bandana on and maybe a Bigfoot Mapping Project t-shirt on. Get some
That's why I
photos
usually
from
wear to work.
just the side.
And then post them, tagging us, the Black Cat Report, in them so I can see that you're doing it. And I won't be mad. I'll love it. I'll share it. We'll share it.
Post them on bigfeetfinder.com and you're going to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
in. Only Bigfoots.
Yeah. We also want to give a shout out to Gil's own
Oh,
sister and brother-in-law
yes.
for supporting us from the beginning. Oh, sorry, I took it from you. It's from you, Gil.
No.
Go ahead.
Y'all are about to get a long letter from both Joey and I. We both took a long time writing out those messages to you. Also, like, sis, bro, I'm always thinking about you guys. I love y'all. Shout out to Sylvia on Instagram, who has been messaging us for a long old while now. They've always been super positive, super supportive, super solid with everything they're saying back behind the scenes on the Black Cat Report Instagram account. Shout out Sylvia. Thank you.
Seriously, amazing. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. I almost forgot to say, I did also get a message on our Instagram account from Elon Musk. He said, "Hello, friend. How are you doing today? Hope you're feeling well and your family, ? You are having a direct text from Elon, period." I was too nervous to respond. He's only got 13 followers.
I see. Yeah. Hey, man. X marks the spot.
Yeah.
Okay? That must be Elon Musk.
Yeah, I'm not responding to him. He's a dupe. fucking douchebag.
Oh. Yeah.
This is why we don't have sponsors.
Not yet.
Love y'all, and we'll see you next week.
Later.